They're all waiting for you." Her mother's voice was smooth, calculated. 5 men stood in a perfect line, eyes gleaming with confidence, knowing they were the only choices that mattered, at least to her mother. But Eleanor's gaze drifted past them, to the man in the corner, mopping the marble floor, unaware that his life would be pulled into the spotlight. The cameras leaned in. The air was electric. "My choice," Eleanor said, "is Thomas." And in that instant, an empire trembled. This is the story of a decision no one saw coming. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching? Hit the like button and drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. Vivienne Hawthorne's name was spoken in boardrooms like a force of nature. She had built her billion-dollar empire from the ground up, turning a modest startup into an international conglomerate. Her every move was calculated, her reputation untouchable, and her will unyielding. But behind the steel-edged smile and the tailored suits was a mother still grieving. 2 years earlier, cancer had taken Eleanor's father, the only man who'd ever dared to challenge Vivienne's dominance. Since then, she had convinced herself that her teenage daughter needed a proper father figure to ensure the family legacy stayed pristine. The morning of Eleanor's 18th birthday, the Hawthorne estate pulsed with quiet urgency. Staff polished silver until it gleamed. Florists lined the marble hallways with white orchids, and a string quartet rehearsed softly in the grand salon. It wasn't a celebration. It was an audition. By noon, Eleanor stood at the top of the sweeping staircase, her pale dress a contrast to the dark formality of the gathering below. 5 men, each in tailored perfection, waited in a neat row. They were titans of industry, political heavyweights, philanthropic celebrities, all chosen personally by Vivienne. "Today," Vivienne announced, her voice smooth yet commanding, "you will choose one of these exceptional men to be your new father, a man worthy of guiding you into the future." The words hung in the air, heavy with expectation. Cameras from an exclusive media partner lingered at the room's edges, ready to broadcast this moment of supposed empowerment. In the corner, unnoticed, a man quietly mopped the marble floor. His name was Thomas, a black janitor who had worked here for years. He didn't belong to this spectacle. He wasn't part of the show. Yet when Eleanor's gaze met his, it wasn't power she saw. It was kindness. She didn't know it yet, but before the day was done, she would set in motion a decision to upend the room, the press, and her mother's carefully constructed empire. The introductions began like ritual theater. Each man stepped forward, extending manicured hands and rehearsed smiles. First was Victor Langley, a hedge fund magnate whose net worth was rumored to rival small nations. He spoke of opportunity and strategic vision, his words polished like his cufflinks. Next came Senator Harold Mason, a political giant whose speeches moved markets. He promised Eleanor access to the corridors of power, as if she were a key he could turn. The others followed, a tech mogul who boasted about innovation, a shipping tycoon dripping with old money charm, and a philanthropist famous for his high-profile galas. They were different in industry, but identical in delivery. Polished, practiced, and self-assured. Eleanor's polite smile never faltered, but inside her chest tightened. None of them asked about her father. None of them mentioned her dreams. Every glance toward her felt like an evaluation, a weighing of worth. Vivienne watched closely, her posture regal, eyes sharp. She believed Eleanor's hesitation was indecision, not quiet resistance. In his faded Navy uniform, Thomas moved silently between them, replacing empty glasses and wiping a spill no one else noticed. He had no place in their hierarchy, but Eleanor remembered the times he'd found her hiding in the gardens, book in hand, when the noise of her mother's world became too much. He never lectured, never judged, just offered a steady presence. Vivian's voice cut through Eleanor's thoughts. You must choose today. The world is watching. Indeed it was. Hidden among the guests were discreet cameras from the Lifestyle Network documenting this historic moment. The men straightened their shoulders, each certain of their advantage. But something inside Eleanor resisted the script. Her mother had framed this as a decision for her own good, but every instinct told her this was about control. Her mind flashed to her father's funeral, how Thomas had been the only one to speak to her like she wasn't porcelain. No wealth, no pretense, just sincerity. Vivian approached, her hand cool on Eleanor's arm. Choose the man who will make you stronger, she said, each word deliberate. Eleanor's heart pounded. Stronger. She knew her mother meant richer, more influential, more untouchable. But strength, she had learned, didn't come from those things. She stood. The music stopped. Conversations hushed. All eyes were on her. I've made my choice, she said. One of the men smirked. Another adjusted his tie. Vivian's smile widened with quiet triumph. But then Eleanor's gaze shifted past them to the man holding an empty tray, still unaware of what was about to happen. My choice, she said clearly, is Thomas. The silence was suffocating. Then came the ripple, gasps, disbelieving laughter, the sharp air intake from the press gallery. The cameras swiveled, zooming in on the janitor who now stood frozen, mop still in hand. Vivian's expression cracked for the first time in years. Eleanor, she said, voice low and dangerous, this is not a time for jokes. I'm not joking, Eleanor replied, her voice steady as her pulse raced. One of the men chuckled under his breath. This is absurd. Another shook his head in disgust. It wasn't just that Eleanor had defied the process. It was who she had chosen. To them, Thomas wasn't an option. Vivian's composure dissolved into anger. You will retract that immediately. This man is staff. And the only one here who has ever treated me like a human being, Eleanor said. Gasps again, cameras flashing. The tension was a living thing, pressing against every room wall. Thomas finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. Miss Eleanor, you don't need to do this for me. I'm doing it for me, she said. Vivian's hand trembled against the back of a chair. Enough. This ends now. But it was too late. The footage was captured, every word recorded. The moment could not be erased. By morning, the video had been viewed over 20 million times. Headlines flooded every platform. Heiress chooses janitor over billionaires. The comments were split between outrage and awe. Vivian locked herself, away from the media storm, issuing only a terse statement about private family matters. But Eleanor's decision had already sparked debates about race, class, and what truly defines worth. Reporters sought out Thomas, who refused interviews, quietly returning to work as if nothing had happened. Yet within the estate, subtle changes took root. Vivian no longer barked orders at him. Sometimes she even listened. For Eleanor, the backlash was fierce. Invitations vanished, society friends kept their distance, and the tabloids painted her rebellious, unstable, or naive. But for every critic, some strangers sent letters, thanking her for showing the world that integrity outweighed influence. Weeks later, Vivian approached Eleanor in the garden. She didn't apologize, but her voice was softer. Your father would have been surprised, she said. Maybe, Eleanor replied, but I think he'd understand. The world moved on, but the message endured, that worth is not tied to wealth, and that sometimes the most radical choice is the simplest one, choosing humanity over power. What about you? If you were Eleanor, would you have made the same choice? Tell us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories.